Welcome back to another episode of Steph's podcast, where I bring you weekly hacks, updates, and strategies around accessory dwelling units, specifically in California, but also soon to be nationwide. I bring different guests who are implementing the ADU strategy, any real estate hacks, midterm rental, multifamily. Those are sort of the topics that you should expect week by week. And if this sounds like you may be a good fit to be on my podcast, maybe you're in this realm of ADUs, feel free to reach out to me. And I look forward to having you on the episode. Enjoy this one, and I'll see you on the next one. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Steph's podcast. This is episode 71. Today we have a special guest. His name is Brian Koons, and we're going to talk about ADUs. Every single week, as you guys know, I'm bringing on different topics and strategies and hacks around ADUs and real estate investing, and now a lot more multifamily hacks as well. So kind of catering to all those three buckets, but always focusing on ADUs. And so today I have Brian. He is based out of San Diego. He's a real estate developer and investor who's obviously making moves in the ADU space with ADU Geeks. I have this bio here, and I like to give the professional one, but then I also like to hand it off so that you guys can see like the human touch. But he really has some good background here. Marine Corps, I see. That's very impressive. And I really want to hear like how your service, thank you for that, by the way, has helped you in the business world, right? Like what are some of those practices and training and just structure that you've created, in that space and brought on to real estate? I think tapping into both of those would be amazing. It says here he house hacked a 1.2 million 4-unit property using his VA loan. Huge hack. I mean, very underrated, which sparked his passion for real estate. So I'll leave it at that and then hand it off to you so you can share a little bit more about who's Brian, how you got started in the ADU space, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Normally it's easier to write it down and then you read it off because you'll always forget something. But yeah, I started off about 4.5 years ago, house hacked the 4-unit. I heard somebody when I was a drill instructor in the Marine Corps and heard somebody talk about house hacking for a very short period of time. That kind of stuck with me. And then during COVID, everything kind of lined up where I could then go and execute on it. And I learned from kind of just being in the military. I ended up like saving a lot of money while I was in and didn't realize how helpful that would be. That ended up helping me a lot getting in that first place. And, it was kind of a storm as well with lower interest rates. The people hadn't exactly caught on yet. This was in, so I decided in May of 2020 that I was going to buy something, and then I was in escrow in June.
Okay.
So it was a very short turnaround time, but it was kind of in this weird blip in the market where everyone kind of paused before they saw that, oh my God, interest rates were so much lower. And I happened to be putting in offers that time, and I was as blind as I could be on everything I didn't know, which turns out to be a lot at the time. But everything kind of lined up, and I would underwrite a deal on my own, and then send it to the underwriter at the loan or the loan officer, and he would just kind of give me a thumbs up, not realizing what any of the other factors were. And one of them just stuck and went through the process, had a great agent with me, and was able to execute pretty quickly on it.
That's awesome. I mean, talk about some of those benefits using the VA loan. I had a guest, my friend Ernesto, who he's built like 5 ADUs himself, and he started off with buying a condo in Hawaii. I don't know if he was still in the Air Force at the time, but he ended up buying the condo, then moved out here, bought some property in Anaheim, Buena Park, like 5 investments in and 5 ADUs later. It was all thanks to the VA loan that really helped him jumpstart. And very similar to you, like he didn't really know what he was doing, but I think that's part of the struggle and part of the journey is like not getting too caught up in analysis paralysis. And the common theme that I hear with people in their story is they never really knew what the hell they were doing 100%, but they were doing it. And that's really what matters, right? Because you bought at one of the most interesting times when rates will probably never be that low ever again. you know, maybe, but I don't see that
Yeah.
happening in this lifetime, at least anytime soon. So the fact that, yeah, you were able to save up so much and then pull the trigger, like without really knowing all the information, but really relying on your realtor and your loan officer, like that team building, you know, really helps. But back to the VA stuff, the benefits of it, right? When you bought it, what were some of the savings that and the perks of buying and using your VA loan?
Yeah, no, great questions. And trying to summarize, basically, number one is you don't have to put any money down. So it's a 0% down loan, which was huge. So on a $1 million property, if it was a 3% down loan, I'd have to put 30 grand down at the bare minimum, and I
Bare
didn't have to
minimum.
do that. And so it kind of like progressed into kind of the future conversation of how I got into ADUs, but zero down, they allow a higher debt to income ratio percentage than like an FHA or a conventional loan. So
Right.
that was an additional layer that I was able to add on that helped me qualify for the property. And then the final thing was you get to take 75% of the rents from the units you're not living in, add it to your income to supplement that debt to income ratio. So all those things paired with the low interest rates, paired with anything, whatever, whoever you believe in, kind of making the time right, I was able to get into something that expensive at a time that was really good in the market. And from there, I was able, with that money that I had saved up, I didn't need it for the actual, property that I was in. That was kind of what my capital was to get started in this development thing. So that was kind of the next stage after that.
Okay. So let's talk about that. How did you weren't with ADU Geeks at the time when you
No,
bought your investment, right? So how did you stumble across, did you add an ADU to the fourplex that you got? Was that the first
no. So
one?
that's one thing at the time I had
Okay.
no idea. So I
Okay.
bought a property looking back, like I probably could add like a small unit, but
Mhm.
I haven't justified that. But it was this moment in like 2020. I figured out what debt to income ratio was, and I didn't have any income left for the debt that I had. So I couldn't just go and buy another property because that's what I was trying to do at first. And so I was, going to networking events, going to meetups, going to try and just learn everything I could. And I actually met the CEO of ADU Geeks at one of these events, and he started like talking about ADUs, and that all of a sudden like clicked with me. It, very fundamental, but you build at $300 a square foot, you sell at 700, and I'm like, yep, that math makes sense to me. A
Mhm.
lot more that goes into it, in hindsight, but that was what stuck with me. And so from there, I kind of started learning, trying to read about it, trying to talk to people, and I met through one of my other buddies who was in a mastermind group with me, another guy, and the three of us essentially all kind of were in the same page of like, hey, we want to develop. And the
Mm.
one guy's dad was a contractor, has been for like 30 years in San Diego, and he was kind of this like blind confidence for us to be able to get started. And so we were talking in November about this, and we said, hey, we want to go buy something, and we were in escrow on a piece of land in December, and that was the same month that this bonus ADU program in San Diego came out. And so we got into escrow expecting to put 4 units on this property. ADU laws changed, and we were able to put 8. So that just kind of like was this moment of light.
Mm.
And from there, I became this like, this individual ADU nerd, secondary from ADU Geeks. But I kept seeing him at like, so the old founder Kalani, I kept seeing him at all these events, and it would get to the point he'd be teaching about ADUs. He'd be like, all right, he would ask a question. He's like, everyone except Brian is allowed to answer, because I would like I was doing my own like nerd research and things like that. And so we were able to so yeah, I bought the land, everything went right, things went good in the market, and that kind of sparked this interest in ADUs and development for me, and it just kind of, I've been falling forward ever since.
So how did you guys structure that land acquisition? Were you the one who bought it and then they also were equity holders because one of them was bringing construction and the other one, or how did you guys structure that?
Yeah, so that one, because we were all so new on it, and his dad was just kind of more just making sure we weren't going to crash and burn with it. So we all came down with about a third of the capital, and all, as blindly as we could, went into it together as equal partners, and still partners with them to this day. We have a couple other projects that we've been doing, and it's been great. But that was how it's structured. We all came in with capital. We all came in with a lack of knowledge, and learned through the process.
That's awesome. And that's another reason why I really enjoy doing networking events because they're if you're intentional with it, you can really find good partnerships. And,
Yes.
you know, work with people that make sense, vet out the people as much as you vet out like your contractors and your architects. Now, the bonus ADU program in San Diego is huge. Where is the land located? Like in the outskirts of San Diego, or
So that one is in a little part of the city called Logan Heights. It
okay,
was what I would call an up and coming neighborhood.
okay,
And we've since sold that land. So we actually sold it almost done with entitlements. And it was because
nice.
of this perfect storm of, nothing that I did by any means. It was the market. It was, whatever. We bought a good property. We got it at a good time with the ADU laws. But we bought it for like 420 and we sold for over $1 million like a year and a half later, not even fully through permits yet. And we took that and 1031 it into 3 other properties. And we were, as blind as and happy as we could be. And we're like, this is great. What could go wrong? And we, we got our ass kicked on the next couple properties and some learning lessons on those. So
Oh
made
man.
it on the back end, which was fun. But yeah, so we sold that, bought a couple others, still doing one. We're about to start construction on that one. And hopefully like by the end of the month, actually, it's a 11 unit that we're building on an existing 4 unit.
Okay.
And yeah, all using the bonus ADU program, which to answer your question, it's an absurd situation with City of San Diego and the unlimited housing or unlimited ADUs.
What is the I know this was something that we talked about at the IMN event, that's where you and I met. And a lot of people were talking about it's a great program, but what is realistically, now that you've been through it, like the time frame? Because I hear different time frames. I don't really work in San Diego County. I work LA, Orange County. And some cities vary, like Long Beach, it can be 3 to 6 months on a good day if you know what you're doing to get plans approved. And many times over the counter for some of like the small junior ADUs. But with the bonus, I hear a year, I hear 8 months, over a year. What are you seeing, and what is that process like?
It's a great question, and I'm gonna paint a little bit of context for you. Just I've been working here at ADU Geek since early 2022.
Okay.
So I've been in it. I've had my own project since 2020, and so I've kind of seen a lot of this whole process. And basically, what happened was this bonus ADU thing came out, and it allowed people to build unlimited ADUs, and there was only this thing called Info Bulletin 400, which was the rules for ADUs. And so when people read those rules, they said, oh, we're allowed unlimited. Here you have 4-foot setbacks or whatever it was at the time, and you're allowed to build, up to the zoning height. And that was pretty much all people knew. So a lot of these people, a lot of these ADU firms, us included and some other ones as well, were kind of at this forefront where we were building or we were going through architecture and we submit to the city. And then the city was starting to catch on and say, wait, these are apartment buildings. So you have to build them per California building code, not California residential code. And so there was this huge growing pain of all these ADU design companies between 2022, 2021, maybe even up through like 2023. I would say most of them went through this, where it was the shift from R3 occupancy, which is 1 or 2 units following California residential code, moving to 3 or more, which is California building code. And that kicked a lot of people's asses in this process. So if you would have started a project 2 years ago, you'd probably be very close to permits or at permits right now. And that's, twice the time frame that probably anyone thought it was going to be. But I have projects that came on a year ago that are already built. So it was this weird time frame where if you came in and you were building a very specific product that was an R2 occupancy building, that you were with somebody that maybe didn't fully understand the implications, paired with the city starting to interpret things differently and realizing that they had to make changes in how they interpreted things and what they allowed, it was a lot more difficult, more expensive, and a lot more timely than you would have hoped. So now much smoother, because people who are still in the business have gotten over the learning curve for the majority of these projects. If we've been in it for a few years, some of these newer companies and stuff maybe don't have all of the experience of that. And so I've noticed some of them are still going through some of those growing pains, but the majority who have made it past are now much smoother. And so it's cool to see now. Wasn't fun in the moment, I know, for people who were at the forefront of this, but it's been way smoother and way quicker for most projects and more consistent. So it's way easier to give a timeline based on scope and size and whatever now. and it gets a lot closer to what it actually is going to be.
That's great to hear because at least there's progress, working with the cities and them really doing their best to streamline the process so that it doesn't take that long. And yeah, I mean, shifting from, the residential code to building code does open up a can of worms. I was talking to Mark about that and like all the hidden fees that are associated with that. And, just the difficult part about communicating with the cities when they say something and they're like, oh yeah, you can do this, but then they kind of backtrack and then they want to implement all these new rules that they weren't aware of.
Exactly.
So
And
they
I was
try to
going to
make it
say,
easy to build, but they don't really do that.
yeah, to give you even more context, we have 2 projects. They're the same person's projects, same size lot, same exact build. The same designers doing them. We've submitted everything the exact same way, the exact same time, but because it has 2 different reviewers, they've gotten pages different of comments. So it's so like that's the complication of development is it's the same project twice, but it is completely different in how they look at it, which changes everything. So it's absolutely crazy.
And it's
That.
knowledge specific, right? Some of these plan checkers or people working behind the computer, like they don't really understand the ADU ordinance, every single one of them, I should say, not all of them, but I did the cohort ADU course with Timothy. Timothy has 20 plus years of planning, so he's kind of explained the whole psychology behind the mindset with people that work for the cities, as these new bonus ADU programs are updated and as legislation is being updated, the people at the city aren't working or updating themselves with information as quickly as these legislations are moving. So although the state is making it very easy and ADU friendly, that doesn't mean that the cities are acting just as quick, right? And so it takes
Exactly.
a little bit of time. But the good thing is that there's progress. And I still think that California is doing an amazing job as far as like being at the forefront of the ADU wave, right? We've seen other states implement it, but I think as far as like California with the bonus program and with the 25% density rule and multifamily, and now with SB 1211, which I was also talking about, game changer, right? You can go from 2 detached to 8, which is insane. Like, and some people, some investors that I've talked to, and I had a conversation with Mark about this too, is for some people, the 2 detached didn't make sense at one point, but now with 8 detached, it makes total sense. The yield and the
Exactly.
cap rate are a lot different. So, what's been your take on that, and how? Like, what are you going to be focusing on in the next, 12 months? We know it's the bonus ADU program because that's the market that you're in. So why not take advantage of that strategy? But are you also looking into SB 1211? What are like the zoning type of properties that are ideal in SD? And what does that look like for you guys? How are you guys implementing that?
Yeah, this is a great question. So for me, the way I look at ADUs is they are just an additional modality to get more density on a project to make the numbers work that you would originally couldn't. And that's all it is, right? So the reason City of San Diego is so hot is because, where most places you can add 1 unit, it doesn't exactly average out to making it a really good investment. When you can go and you can add 8 units to a single family, all of a sudden that starts to pencil. So now this SB 1211 making units where if you had a 10 unit project and you can only add 2, which is a 20% increase, now you can add 8, and that's almost it's an 80% increase. It all of a sudden makes it pencil a lot better for a lot of people and opens up opportunities. So I think that in general now there's going to be another portion of people who have the wherewithal to purchase multifamily up to 8 units or more in California, which is still a select group of people. It allows them to make deals work. So I think there's going to be a little bit more mobility and transaction volume in that multifamily space. For ADUs on the smaller level, I personally have always liked the distressed small asset, so 1 to maybe 4 units max, renovating those existing units and then adding more units through ADUs. Because what that does is that gives you multiple exit strategies. And that is my favorite thing. So you could buy, you can renovate, you've added value. And if you bought right, you can exit and still either make money or break even. Worst case scenario. You go through permitting at that same time, you can then build, or you go through permitting for whatever you're going to build, and you now have added value through acquiring those permits. And then from there, you
Right.
can either sell or you can build it out. And then from there, you can refinance if it makes sense in the market, or you can sell based on whatever, your cash flow needs are. And so that model of this like distressed single family in a single family home neighborhood for me is the number one. I don't like these, these these multifamily lots that are all around multifamily that people are just saying, hey, I'm going to add as many units as I possibly can, no parking for anyone, and you can just walk everywhere. Which like it's a demographic and it's going to work for people. For me, I personally like the single family home neighborhood where I can add 2 to 6 units in the backyard. It looks like a single family home or a small area. It's super livable for people. There's parking on the streets. It's not really going to affect anyone. And you make an asset that you've now monopolized in a market because you are all around single families that are 3, 4, 5 bedroom houses. You can go in, you can build a 1 bedroom or a 2 bedroom, and anyone who wants to live there that either can't afford or doesn't need that much space can now rent that out, and they're going to be pounding at your door to do that. So that's my personal philosophy on what I'm looking for.
No, I agree with that, because I think in multifamily with some of, these, let's say a 15 or 20 unit, if you're going to add 8 units to it, and some of it is garage that you're taking away from the other tenants. What Mark and I were talking about actually was that they've seen a decrease in rents. So people are actually going to pay you less on some of these ADU conversions for existing multifamily structures, or even detached, but if you're adding more units to a multifamily, in some cases, you're actually getting less rent on these ADUs than you would in a small residential neighborhood that has 2 detached units. Because I have seen that, like, a lot of these smaller units, anything under 500 square feet, is performing better, because some of these people who can't live in those neighborhoods are willing to pay a premium just to have access to that location or that specific neighborhood.
Yeah, the school
And just
district.
school district parking, even if it's street parking, it's just much nicer. It's not crowded with a whole bunch of buildings where you can't find parking. It's parking
Exactly.
is still doable. So people will pay a premium. And sometimes, if you structure it in a way where, you have a detached corner lot, 1 to 4 units corner lot, and the back unit or the ADUs have some sort of patio space, people are also willing to pay a premium. So I see what you're saying. Like, the best play, and the one that gives you the most leverage, is that smaller multifamily that you can either have value add through ADUs or take it up to just like the permit phase and not go through construction, right? So I think that's great. It's always good to hear what people are working on, and like their thought process behind this whole ADU hack movement. So can you hear me?
Yeah, it's
I think you
huge.
froze up a little
I
bit.
love that. I love that thought process.
Yeah.
I got you.
Awesome.
Can you hear
So
me?
tell me
All right.
how can people connect with you, and yeah, and reach out if they want to build, or if they want to partner up. Are you looking for partnerships, if it makes sense? Are you helping clients just buy and build, or like how can people connect with you, and what are those types of services that you're looking to cater to?
Yeah, all the above. So you can reach me. Best way is on Instagram at the Builder Brian. It's my Instagram. I trying to post more and more helpful content for
Yes.
people. In terms of partnerships, I have a couple of partners that are we're all operators, and now we're kind of at the point where we're limited by capital. So if anyone has remaining capital that they love to get interested, look into a deal. That's kind of the partnership that I'm looking for, is more passive, letting us take the reins and use our expertise. And yeah, I'm happy to help anyone that can get in contact with me. If it's in my brain, it's free to you until I don't have any more time left. So happy to help.
That's awesome. I really want us to have another episode next year to kind of have a recap and an update on where you're at with your investment journey and your development projects, because I see you doing a whole bunch all through San Diego, and and really just informing yourself about the bonus program and understanding it at a very high level. So we'll definitely have a part 2, guys. Thank you so much, Brian, for your time. Make
I
sure you
would love
guys
it.
reach out to him, and yeah, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you so
Amazing.
much.
Thanks, Steph. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening on Buzzsprout, Apple, Spotify, I really appreciate any feedback. If there's any specific topics you'd like me to touch on or have a guest speak on, please feel free to reach out. You can go to stepsellsadu.com. And that's it for now. Thank you guys for watching and listening.